Welcome to We Are Montgomery Township, the podcast where we keep you informed and engaged about what's happening in Montgomery Township in Montgomery County. Today's guest is our Township Manager, Carolyn McCreary. Hello, welcome to episode 1 of the We Are Montgomery Township podcast. My name is Derek Muller, and I am the Public Information Coordinator for Montgomery Township. The day this episode releases marks the start of Local Government Week. Local Government Week celebrates the role of local governments in providing services and improving the quality of life in their communities. This year, we're celebrating by launching this podcast and hosting students from Montgomery Elementary to learn about our departments and what they do. With me today is our Township Manager, Carolyn McCreary, to discuss her role in the Township's operations. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thanks, Derek.
So first, can you tell us what the roles are of a Township Manager?
The role of a Township Manager technically is to oversee the day-to-day operations of all departments of the Township. Realistically, it's no 2 days are the same. The role evolves the way the day goes. One day could be focused on outward-facing things like public works projects. Another day could be internal, like meeting with you to discuss updates on where we're at with our public information initiatives, citizen engagement. Overall, I would say, 90% of my job is dealing with people, either with residents, with staff, with our professionals, our engineers, our solicitor, other consultants.
So that's a lot, obviously. So how did you get involved in being Township Manager?
Actually, I had a boss. I worked in finance. My undergrad degree is in accounting. I took a job as an internal auditor at the community college, hated that. Didn't like auditing. So I took a job as Upper Gwinnett Township's accounting manager and was there about 4 years. And then I took a job in Lansdale Borough as the director of finance. And it was there that I got exposed to a wide array of local government issues by attending borough council meetings, by having a borough manager who I developed a relationship with where he trusted me and brought me into things that weren't necessarily finance related. And he suggested that I might want to consider going back to school and getting my master's in public administration. I did, and then I was approached to take a managing job in Bucks County, and I interviewed for it and got it, and that started me on my route.
The Bucks County, that was...
Plumstead Township, yes. So it's the northern part of central Bucks County, yes.
Yep. So what brought you from Plumstead to Montgomery Township?
I wasn't really actively looking, but I had a couple people who approached me, other managers, and suggested that this might be a good fit. It might be time to take another step in the management journey. I did what most candidates hope they do, which is I looked at the website. I grew up in Norristown, so I knew the North Penn region. I'd already worked in Upper Gwinnett and Lansdale, so it wasn't a stretch. I was just really on the other side of County Line Road. So I looked it up. I, made the decision to interview. I was fortunate to get chosen for a first interview and then a follow-up interview, and then I was offered the position.
Great. And now here you are.
Here I am.
So you mentioned you oversee all the staff, the engineers, the volunteer committees, et cetera. So that means you're like the very top, right? You're completely in charge.
Yes. There's a reason they say it's lonely at the top. Yes. There is no one to turn to sitting at the chair next to you, but I have a really great team of people here. Makes the job a lot easier.
So with that said, there is a Board of Supervisors. So can you tell us how the manager interacts with them?
Theoretically, the Board of Supervisors make policy, and then it's our job, with me leading the initiative, to take the policies that they want and find ways to implement them into our activities. In real life, I think it's more of a partnership. They're ultimately, if you look at a work chart, it's ultimately the stakeholders, our residents, our business owners who, we all respond, we all answer to. The Board of Supervisors are elected by those residents to represent their needs, their wants, their quality of life issues in the township. And then my role is to be sort of the point person to make sure that those initiatives are followed through on.
Township can often be confused with Montgomery County due to the same name, or with Lansdale and North Wales boroughs, since we have mailing addresses for Lansdale and North Wales through the post office. What do you think makes Montgomery Township unique and stand out?
Easy. It's staff. This is a group of people who are committed to the work they do, regardless of whether it's forward-facing, like our police and fire and public works, or behind the scenes, code enforcement, administration. They care about what they do. They strive to do their best no matter what the tasks are, and they care about each other. And they watch out for each other, and they work well together. So we don't have silos here. So if there is a project and we need Public Works, they come over and help. If Public Works needs assistance internally from administration staff, they know they've got the support there, and it just works really well.
You use the term silos. What do you mean by that?
Well, internally, we have a number of departments. And in the past, the department would just be concerned about their operations, their issues, their purchases. We've taken a much more collaborative approach in the last few years, especially with the pandemic, recognizing that something that's being done in Public Works might impact something that's happening in the police, which might impact something of a financial nature. So we really try to cross bridges and talk together often and consider how any of our actions are going to affect other employees, even if they're not in our particular department.
So everyone works together as a team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Team Montgomery.
So with everything that you have to keep track of, you're dealing with residents, staff, probably outside organizations as well. What are some of the biggest challenges that you face as township manager?
I think the fact that there are so many stakeholders and they can sometimes have competing interests is a real challenge to navigate that, as well as the complexities of what we're responsible for. So we are responsible for public safety, which means we have police, we have fire, we are fortunate to have an EMS provider that has a facility on our campus. We have residents who, to some degree don't really know what levels of government do. So some of the things they want to see us do, they don't realize we don't have control over. We have state roads that run through our community. We don't control those. We're not responsible for them, thank goodness, but at the same time, we don't have any say in how they're maintained, the complexities of navigating traffic on them. So I think it's just sort of understanding that there's so many stakeholders and they all bring different desires and demands, if you will, to the table.
Just real quick, what is a stakeholder?
In layman's terms, stakeholders are the various groups that interact with the township and that the township has to consider when we make decisions, when we do projects. Everything from residents to business owners to visitors to the township to other government agencies, to other municipalities around us, to regulatory bodies such as Department of Environmental Protection, EPA, which is Environmental Protection Agency.
Sure, and local governments, it's a pretty tough subject for people to really grasp, I think.
It is.
There's a lot of moving parts. Like you said, there's a lot of different agencies that are responsible for different moving parts. So I guess that's why the education is so important.
It is. And also, I think another thing is that we have to answer. We're accountable to other government agencies. So, I can't just do what I want as township manager. There is a code for townships of the second class that was developed by the legislature in Harrisburg many years ago, and that is our guiding document. The county has certain initiatives, certain things that they do. The state, Department of Environmental Protection. So we know stormwater is a big concern, especially with the amount of heavy rain events we've seen in the last 5 to 7 years. And yet people just assume that we don't get pushed down or mandates from other levels of government. And in fact, we do. So a lot of what we're trying to do in stormwater has been determined by EPA, who then tells DEP, the state agency, what they need to do, and then they relay it down to the municipalities.
So I'm sure there comes a certain level of challenge in juggling all those demands. So how do you kind of keep yourself together and handle all those demands and challenges?
Probably lists. Number one, I have lists everywhere. I prioritize regularly. So what looks like it's going to be the priority for the day can change on a dime by somebody simply walking into my office and saying, do you have a minute? And whatever they're bringing to me might result in my having to, change direction, work on something I wasn't expecting, and then something else gets pushed back. I also have excellent support staff. I have a management team of department heads that I think is second to none. They come together, they get the job done, and they are not afraid to roll up their sleeves and work and sometimes take the burden off of me having to do things single-handed because you can't do this job as an island.
So kind of on the flip side, so within those challenges, what are some of the biggest accomplishments that you're most proud of since you started here?
Well, I started in January of 2020, so 2 months before the first case of COVID-19 in the county. I would think, hands down, the way we handled the pandemic is probably my proudest moment here because I was new. The team was new to me. I was new to them. We had just hired a director of finance. We had just hired a fire chief, and we all came together and figured out how to navigate this. And we're able to reopen operations in a short amount of time because it was all hands on deck. It didn't matter what your job title was or what your position was. If you had an idea, we ran with it. I remember we were trying to figure out how to hold public meetings again. Everybody else was still virtual, but the board really wanted to see if it was possible. And a public works person who happened to be walking through the meeting room and heard us talking said, why don't we just put painter's tape and mark an X on the chairs you don't want people to sit in? Because we were there. Where are we going to put all these chairs? We're going to try to we're 6 feet apart. Where do the rest of these chairs go? We don't have an attic that we can just shove everything. And his suggestion just off the cuff was brilliant, and it worked for us. And we were able to get back up and running. We took the mandatory time that we had to in the beginning to, flatten the curve, but then we were all back in here again. The benefit of this building and its age is that we were all separated. We're not in a pod all working together. So I can remember days where we would have a virtual meeting set for a certain time to discuss what's changed this week. And all you would hear through the building is doors closing as people were in various rooms and offices getting on this call and working. And I think that's probably the thing I'm proudest of. And then I guess the other thing would be we really didn't have a capital improvement plan here. We call it a capital investment plan. A lot of infrastructure and other capital needs had just been sort of pushed off. And we recognized after talking to the department heads and staff that we had a lot of things we needed to take care of. And we were able to put together a 5-year plan, explain to the board that this is a living document and it can change from year to year. And then we were able to fortunately borrow money at historically low rates and really start making a dive into what we needed to. Everything from park improvements to traffic signal upgrades to stormwater projects. That I'm really proud of, that we actually had a plan, which we then tied into our annual budget.
It sounds like a lot of really thoughtful and important work went into the plan, and I can't wait to dive into more of its specific components on future podcasts. For those who want to be a township manager or working with local government, what are some qualities you think a township manager should possess, or someone who's aspiring to be one should possess?
I think you have to have a mindset of a servant leader. It's cliche. It's used a lot. It's probably overdone in some areas, but it's really true. Even though you might be in a position where you're taking the lead on a project or a department, you need to have a servant mindset. You are here to serve others. Sometimes people take the public servant term a little too literally, and we feel like the hired help, but I still think that's really important. I also think if you want to go in local government, you should learn about local government first. Volunteer for a committee in your community. I have a daughter who sits on a library board. I sat on the planning commission where I live. There's, if you're interested in parks and recreation, there's a myriad of ways to get involved that way. If you don't want to volunteer for the committee, maybe if there's an event, you can volunteer at that. Really see what local government does. I always tell students when I speak to them that if you want to see change, this is the level of government you want to be at. Because you could work in the federal government and see a project or some new program discussed and never see it get off the ground in your time there. Here, you see when it's discussed. You see if you're putting a grant application together, whether it's successful or not. You see the shovel go in the ground. You see the completion of it. And you see your community taking advantage of it, whether it's a new park, whether it's a lighted crosswalk, whether it's the community recreation center. Those are big impacts that affect everyone day to day. And I think in terms of leadership, if you're going to be a township manager, I think you need to be authentic. I think no matter who you're talking to, you need to be yourself. They can't think that you put on one mask in front of, your elected officials and another mask in front of your staff. You just need to be authentic. And I think leading people, you need to have empathy. And I think that's critical because people don't leave their lives when they come into these four walls. So you have to understand that, we all come in carrying different loads and, the job is good. And, we're all very fortunate that we work for the, the community we do and the board that we do. But at the same time, life still goes on. And as a leader, a manager, a department head, even as someone who's on just starting out the staff level, you need to have empathy for each other.
It's so important to remember the human side of local government and that people keep communities in motion. That was a great conversation, Carolyn. I want to thank you for joining us again on our first episode, and we're looking forward to many more great episodes.
Thanks for having me, Derek.
Yep. Happy Local Government Week.
Happy Local Government Week.
Thanks for listening to the We Are Montgomery Township podcast. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow Montgomery Township on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at MontTWP. Our display name is Montgomery Township, PA. Until next time, we are Montgomery Township.